looked to the side, feeling embarrassed. I didn't want to have to look at him because of the feeling of warmth on my cheeks, and because I must have been making such a weird face. He moved so his face was in my chest before I sighed to myself. Sorry for being so flustered all the time. I know it can get annoying, having to deal with having a boyfriend who is always too flustered to talk or do anything sometimes. I whispered, moving back a little to let him see my face. I was still feeling too nervous, so I didn't make eye contact with him, but he soon moved his hands to cup my cheeks.
That's alright. I know you should feel more comfortable just being around me anyway.
My shoulders relaxed at this action. Maybe being flustered around others isn't so bad, because when I'm here with Kokichi, I feel at peace. Yeah, I said, looking over to the bookshelf. Ever since we got here, I was wondering what kind of books they must have here, and my curiosity got the best of me.
Shuichi,
Kokichi asked with a groan. I slowly moved my eyes to look at him, and he looked annoyed. Is it because I took my eyes off of him? I wonder sometimes what must be going through his head, but sometimes even I can't tell. He is a liar after all. Sorry. I was looking over at the bookshelf. I whispered, feeling a little flustered, but I didn't let it take my eyes away from him again. He looked to the side and rolled his eyes before he faced me again.
Shu, you really want to read, don't ya?
He said, looking up at me. I looked to the side for a moment before his hand turned my face to his.
Don't avoid me, my beloved,
he teased, caressing my cheeks with his hands on either side of my face. I felt so embarrassed because of this, and honestly just wanted to melt into a puddle of shame. Yeah, I want to read, I said, looking over at the shelf again before Kokichi sighed and shook his head.
Why didn't you just say so?
He exclaimed, before pulling me over to the couch in the living room. It was a nice couch, and there was even a blanket hanging over the edge for me to use, if I wanted to.
Here, we can read together,
he said, before he walked over and grabbed the first book he saw on the shelf. It seemed to be a cold case book. A book where they go through cold cases that either haven't been solved yet, or cases that have already been cracked. Okay, I said with a smile coming to my face. I had forgotten how much I love these little things Kokichi does. Usually if I wanted to read, and someone else needed me, or wanted my attention for something, they would always get mad if I wanted to be reading instead of talking to them. But, I mean, you have to be careful what you wish for, because people are always going to want to have my focus. But Kokichi understands that sometimes I want to be able to do something without having to talk. More like moments with silent conversation and gentle touches while you are in the presence of one another. He didn't say anything else as he slowly moved into my lap and cuddled into my chest. His back was facing me, but it still felt so comfortable being there with him in this moment. I pulled the blanket over the two of us before wrapping my arms around him and holding the book in front of the two of us. We didn't speak to each other in that moment. He would just put his finger on the corner of the page before looking up at me to make sure I was ready to move on as well. I smiled, and we read the book together in that quiet moment. Every once in a while, I would kiss the back of his neck or his shoulder as we read. He would giggle a bit at this before going back to reading. It seemed nice being there with him, just reading like we were in our own little house, married and in love. I blushed at this thought before Kokichi looked up at me, ready to turn the page. I gave him a small nod, feeling my face become hotter.
Shumai,
he called out, moving around in my lap so he was now facing me. He wrapped his legs around my back and looked me in the eyes.
I love you,
he whispered, before he moved his head to rest on my shoulder. I was confused by his actions, but moved one of my hands to his upper back. Why all of a sudden? I asked. He laughed a bit against my skin.
You're supposed to say I love you back, Shu,
he said in a more loving tone. I smiled and apologized. Sorry. I love you as well, Kokichi, I whispered back. He seemed content with this and just let me hold him while he was in my arms. I trailed my hand up to hold the back of his head as my fingers intertwined in his hair. He humped against my neck before planting a small kiss there. He rested against my neck, and I felt relaxed with him so close to me. Like there was nothing else in the world other than me and Kokichi, here, together on the couch in this house where we are going to be safe. In this town, it is small and quiet. In this moment, one with another, loving everything about the other, wanting nothing but each other. I smiled at the thought before thinking, so poetic, Shuichi, before I laughed a bit.
You're so weird, Shu.
He whispered, making me blush a bit before I smiled. But I'm your weirdo, I said back, causing him to give me a breathy laugh.
Yeah, you're right, my beloved emo weird detective.
He said finally. We laughed a little together before going silent again, letting the sound of the heater consume what was silent. The calming hum of the heater, along with the calming heartbeat from Kichi, made me feel happy. Genuinely happy that I made it this far. Happy that even if Kokichi is now a vampire, that we are safe and bonded to one another.